back to the Unrestricted podcast. This is episode 2. We did episode 1 last week. If you haven't checked it out yet, check it out. I'm joined here with Drew Camden, aka Drib.
What's up, guys?
Chad Capper.
Hi, guys.
And one of my favorite tech gurus, but this is Joshua Bardwell.
Hey.
Welcome, Josh. Thank you for being our special guest today.
And thank you for being...
I do feel special.
Thank you for dedicating so much time to this industry and this hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
So hey everyone, listen, I just wanna say thank you so much for all the positive comments, for everyone who reached out about the whole mental illness thing. I know that honestly, like some of the people who reached out to me, my situation is not even close to theirs. So I feel for everyone who is struggling with that kind of stuff. And then at the same time, I would just like to, let's get right into it.
Yeah, if you're just joining, this is our second episode.
This is our second episode.
We had our first episode, and toward the end, Matty opened up about some stuff. And I think overall, we got some great feedback on the episode. But yeah, I did see also those comments that you're talking about, specifically about people relating to their own struggles, and that was a really awesome thing to see, and not something that I would have expected us to be able to do in our first podcast episode. Let's dig right into the...
And I had a lot of people private message me as well, so I'd just like to say thank you for everyone who shared, and obviously we're all here for anyone who's in desperate need. And then I just want to make this perfectly clear, guys. We didn't start this podcast to compete with anyone, okay? I want to make that absolutely perfectly clear.
Well, that's what today's episode is about.
Absolutely, and what we really started this podcast was to unite the FPV community. So,
but we did get comments about competition, and I got the same thing, and that was one of the several reasons I wanted to bring Josh on. When I started my second YouTube channel, I was going to be a bit more tech focused. I got comments being like, "Oh, you're trying to take out Josh." No, I'm not trying to take out Joshua.
No, there's easier ways to take out Joshua than that.
Yeah, right? So, I kind of those sort of sentiments got us thinking about competition in the industry, and we wanted to do a podcast all about competition and some of the things that surround that, including closed versus open source and single efforts like individual YouTube channels versus collaborative efforts like this podcast where we've got a few of us working together. All those things that kind of contribute to different aspects of competition in the FPV industry.
Competition in the field that I'm in, which is helping people who are stuck, which there are tons of, because this is such a complicated hobby with so much knowledge that you need to know to even keep your head above water. I feel like that's a great thing. When I started making videos way back when, someone said, "Oh, hey, maybe you could be the next Painless 360." And I said, "What do you... First of all, forget about the next Painless 360. He's still around. He's still doing his thing." And I think the more of us there are out there, the better. We still haven't met the need for people to help other people answer tech problems. So it doesn't feel to me like a competition thing, except in as much as when I see somebody else do a killer video on a topic I've been thinking about for a while and just haven't gotten around to. And then I'm like, "Ah, dang, I can't believe you beat me to it." But it's in a good way, because ultimately there's more, this knowledge needs to get out there.
I can say for certain
kind of competition.
Sorry. I can say for certain there's never enough help for especially newcomers. Based on my experience with flight tests, like there's never enough people helping. So oftentimes people might just want to hear it from their favorite person, because there's tons of videos about tuning, but I want to hear Joshua, what he says about tuning. And
it's true. It's true. Everybody puts it a little bit different way, and everybody connect. Some people like Stinger Swarm's video about tuning. That people have watched that. I see the comments and they're like, "Oh, it's the best tuning video I've ever seen." And I'm like, have you seen my videos?
Oh.
But everybody connects in a different way with a different way of presenting, and so some people are really turned off by my style of presenting and don't really like the way I do it. So covering the same thing twice, absolutely. Whatever gets you. Go ahead.
I was thinking about doing a tuning video for a long time on my channel, and I didn't really take it on because I was like, well, Bardwell's covered it to the moon and back. Every time a new firmware comes out, he gets you update. Who cares, right? Stingy has a great video on it, but enough people are saying, no, they want to hear the individuals.
Absolutely.
So I think every well-known pilot, do a tuning video, do trick tutorials, because the education area is an interesting area in which we compete or don't compete per se, because there is never enough help, and every person can put a different spin on it. And you never know when your way of explaining something, or Matty's way, or Josh's way, or whatever, is going to connect with a different mindset for a different person.
Definitely.
I don't. I can maybe do some trick tutorials and teach you how to build a really fast rig that's light. But as Josh knows, I literally ask him about anything I need to know about tuning. So
I got a call I got a call from Matty. This was I don't remember. It was months ago. And he said, "Hey, I've been away. I've been doing other things for a while. I'm trying to get my rig back in the air, but it's three versions of Beta Flight later. Can you just help me with that?" And he I just spent a half hour on the phone with him. Said, "No, min check is this. Whatever. Going through all the options, helping him get the configuration updated." So yeah, right. He's not kidding there.
You leave this hobby for 6 months and you have like 10 different versions of Beta Flight that you have to relearn and yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a really fast-moving industry, which, again, circles back to competition. I mean, what drives that speed? I think it is that there are a lot of different players that are all innovating in their own ways. And something I wanted to get into today was, for flight control specifically, kind of open versus closed source, and how KISS was closed source from the beginning, and then Beta Flight was more of an open source community-driven effort, and then Raceflight came in as another closed source option, and how, who was leading the innovation? Was it the open source mentality? Was it the closed source mentality?
So those are more development philosophies than competition, right? I mean, what is the topic?
Drew, I guess you're the host. What is the topic?
Well, Matty's the host. The topic was competition, right? But I think that.
But what about
I think
competition?
That the different development philosophies factor into how things compete or don't compete with each other. So, for example, Raceflight might have a competitive edge because they have some special filter software in there that no one else knows about. But then there's some drama over at Raceflight. One of their employees leaves in a disgruntled way. They leak the source code, and now certain aspects of that are being implemented into the open source Beta Flight firmware. So is Raceflight losing its competitive edge because it lost some of the closed source secretiveness?
Yeah, you could think about the competition in a couple ways. One way that you seem to have touched on there is the competition amongst racers, really, because freestyle pilots are competitive, but not in the same way that racers are. At the end of the day, somebody comes across the finish line first and they win the race. Whereas with freestyle, you're just awesome, but that's kind of subjective. So you could think about competitiveness in racers trying to get the best edge, and which firmware is sort of giving them better lap times, right? And you can also think about competitiveness in terms, and this is the one that I think results in a lot of drama, is people, I call it like a tribal mindset. If you get a large enough group of people together, some of them will go over here and say those guys over there are terrible, and vice versa. You see it with sports teams. It is, people will take any opportunity to decide that they're together and those guys are on the outs. Mm-hmm. And you see that especially when, like, for some reason it didn't seem to happen when KISS came out, a little bit, but I think the way that KISS was brought into existence was always kind of there was still a good feeling. Felix was still contributing things back to Beta Flight and to the community at large, and there was never kind of a big, everyone else sucks and we're awesome attitude, although there was some of that in the users, because like I said, people will always try and go that direction. But something about the way that Raceflight was brought out had kind of a big flounce and a big huff, and seemed to encourage or foment that competitive tribal mindset of we're awesome and everyone else sucks. Yeah. That seemed to transcend the question of whether it made racers go faster and just, we're awesome and you suck.
Yeah. So actually, just to back up for 1 second, what we're talking about here is flight control software, hardware, firmware, and there's what we have now is 3 camps. We have Betaflight, which is a it's an open source project. You can run it on boards, on circuit boards, the flight boards that are manufactured by a variety of makers. Then you have KISS, which has been out for a while, and you have to run that on their proprietary board. And you also have Raceflight, which is a third flight control firmware that has to be run on proprietary Raceflight boards. And so there have been others that have come and gone, but the most recent player to enter the game was Raceflight. And so when they entered, KISS and Betaflight were the 2 most prominent players. And when Raceflight came in, as Joshua explained, they came in saying this is the best, most game-changing, earth-shattering, knocked your sock. Big deal, made a big deal about how much better it was than the existing competition. And I think you're absolutely right, Joshua. It drove this tribal mentality to a new level. I don't want to blame one thing, but that was part of it.
So one thing I would like to clarify, so competition is still a very broad subject. Are we talking about, is competition good? How do you compete? What's healthy versus unhealthy? Or just all of that?
Just broadly all of it, right? So within competition, we're right now talking about these 2 design philosophies, open versus closed source. And, I kind of wanted to explore which of those things we thought provided a competitive edge or which didn't. And then something I wasn't planning on talking about, but I would love to circle back to, is the competitiveness of racing versus the competitiveness of freestyle, which Joshua just brought up. Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting area of our hobby.
Yeah, I think there's a couple main areas where it's you have racers competing with racers, you have race leagues competing with different race leagues, you have freestyle pilots competing with who has the best tricks, the most followers, and then you have who's going to produce the best content, the best technology, and it's almost like this little money grab that everyone's trying to get their hooks into their market share, the market share of the industry, right?
And I think that definitely played into the sort of we'll call it a marketing push that occurred with Raceflight, because of course Raceflight, you say it's the newest one, but that's really Raceflight 1. Raceflight existed as an open source project for a long time before it transitioned to the closed source product called Raceflight 1. That then there was okay, we're going to take this closed source, we're going to try to make money with it. And anytime you're trying to make money, there's a tendency to say that you're the best, and sometimes that spills over into a tendency to say that everyone else is the worst. And then that results in that kind of competitiveness. There's a common, I think, misconception that open source projects aren't competitive, that because open source is fundamentally about sharing ideas and with each other, that they're not competitive. There's a huge amount of competitiveness between open source projects and between developers within an open source project, to get these great ideas implemented and to be the first to implement a great idea. I think anybody who's worked on an open source project will agree they're immensely competitive, and yet somehow they're competitive, but also willing to share the fruits of that competition. And so it's kind of a kind of competitive. It feels to me, at least, like a kind of competitiveness that is brought around lifting everybody up while still competing. But then once we find something good, everybody gets to come up with it, as opposed to the closed source mindset, which is we're going to be competitive, but we're going to keep the fruits of that competitiveness to ourselves. And sometimes that works if you manage to lock up somebody who's really smart, like Kalen Dorr, who's the main, I would call him the main developer for Raceflight, had a lot of the ideas, is my impression. If you manage to lock him up, then you get all of his fruits to yourself. But you also only have that one thing. So it feels like,
So what do you think is going to happen to Raceflight now that the leak that I mentioned? So Kalen left Raceflight, and there was.
Oh, he did.
Mm-hmm. And
he's
on his way out.
He's
the source code.
Definitely out. Yeah, he is contributing to Betaflight right now.
And just there are legal issues around this, so that Kalen and the Raceflight team are in litigation over his actions.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Wait, the level. Wait, why are you saying that?
What do you mean? Why am I saying that?
Are you talking about that letter that was posted?
No, I'm talking about
Cease
in a live stream I was watching yesterday. That
Okay, yeah, because the letter that was posted. Did you see the cease and desist?
No, I didn't see that even.
I think that it's not real.
Oh, I didn't see it.
I can confirm that.
Now, how do you know
wait,
that?
I want to hear Joshua.
I can confirm that cease and desist webpage that was put up. I'm pretty sure. Well, I've already said it, so I may as well just commit. I can confirm that came from Kalen, or a representative of Kalen. That is not fake.
Okay.
Can someone tell me what we're even talking about in our audience who might not have seen some Facebook posts?
There was so here's the issue. Kalen Dorr, he was the originator of the original open source raceflight project. Then he met up with a guy. This is the very, very short version, so please take it as that. He met up with a guy called Preston Garrison. They formed a business together and transitioned Raceflight to Raceflight 1, which is the closed source for-profit business, and that's the Raceflight we all know and love today. Recently, Kalen left Raceflight. Well, Kalen would say he didn't leave Raceflight because he is Raceflight. He took Raceflight with him as he left Preston. It would be a better way probably of putting it. And the problem is that, as far as I know, he's got the code, but I think there's still some question over who controls the trademarks and who ultimately has the sort of essentials of the business, the practical day-to-day aspects of the business, as opposed to the ideological.
Because Preston says that he owns Raceflight and that
Kalen
is stealing from the company, and
exactly. So probably they're going to end up in court if they really want to solve this.
Matty, you were challenging or bringing up a question. What was that?
It was, you said, Chad, to Drew, how do you know that? And then you said something, and then I'm like, how do you know that? Because you brought up the cease and desist, but Josh just answered it.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, because I didn't know, I had just heard, and until I know, I have to leave things open-ended.
And this is another thing that happens in the FPV community. It's a lot of, you have to hear it from the horse's mouth. And we almost played a little game of telephone Skype on the same Skype call. So.
Oh yeah, well I think what the thing is though, if your judgment that you're making is somehow condemning somebody, that's different than you're trying to gain as much information as possible to make an educated decision. And I think what happens is people get one piece of information and they make a determination and a judgment and they move forward with that. And I don't make a judgment on anything until there are facts in front of me.
So exactly how the Raceflight split is going to play out, that's to be seen. And you can count on us to report on it as developments occur in future episodes. But for now, the facts are Raceflight had some closed source code, and now it's been shared with, I guess you could say it's been shared with the community, and it's being implemented in other firmwares. Is this bad for Raceflight? Is it good for the community? Vice versa? Is it good for Betaflight? What does this all mean for Raceflight's competitive edge in the flight control, space?
I'm happiest in an open source environment. I like the sharing of ideas. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I really enjoy that environment, and so I would argue it's good for the community. Who it's bad for, because we get access to these features. So. Kalen implements an awesome kind of new filter that makes the quad fly great in Raceflight, and Betaflight say, "Oh, that's great," and picks it up. And some people say, "Oh, that's stealing," but it's not stealing any more than going to a potluck and taking a bite out of somebody else's bowl, on the potluck table is stealing.
It's not stealing for Betaflight to use it now. If there's any wrongdoing, it was in Kalen's. But now that it's out there, I'm
talking about in an open source environment in general. Yeah. Reuse of other ideas is just like when you go to a potluck, sharing food is part of the.
I would disagree
with
your analogy, Josh. I would say the analogy, because the analogy you're giving is that they eat it and they're done until they crap it out. But I would say in this case, you're taking something and you're infinitely selling it, or spreading it from that point.
Right.
And I think that's a big difference. I personally align with you, Joshua, as far as I believe knowledge should be shared freely. I believe that, things should be shared. but I also believe that people should be as unique and original as possible. And I think I practice both of those methodologies in what I do. I say, I will gladly share any information that I have, and I love to do that. But I also try to be as unique as I can while I'm inspired by others.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I like your idea that the events that we're talking about could be good for the community, but I would propose that it could be bad for the industry. This sort of thing could be bad for the industry, because I believe that for this industry to grow, there needs to be profitable companies, and this could be something. I'm not saying it is. I don't know all the logistics, but this could be something that does damage race flights. Success in the short term, maybe even the long term. I'm not sure, but that's something that kind of scares me. If these sort of things are going to happen in our industry, how does that affect the growth of our industry? When we need to see profitable companies, we need to see jobs created that people can work.
Yeah, but profitability and proper company success, or however you want to say that, is the same no matter what industry it's in. So I'm curious, when you say within our industry, what does that have to do with this situation? Do you think it's somehow unique to our industry, Drew?
No, of course not.
So what did you mean by that?
What mean by what?
You said we need to be, I forget how you put it, but somehow.
So I was saying, I want to see companies be profitable in this industry, right? And when things like this happen that could affect the profitability or the success of a prominent company, what does that mean? Is it going to take? I'm not saying it's going to take out our industry, but might rattle cages, might rattle people's confidence in being able to work in this space. I
think, from my perspective, I think it just means that if that happens, if a company stumbles and goes away or whatever, then somebody will fill that slot. And I think each iteration it'll become quicker. The next guy and the next guy.
It is tough. It's tougher though. I was going to say the second open source I feel like is good for the users, but it's bad for people who want to make money. And not to say that the open source pundits out there, the open source proponents out there, are screaming now saying you absolutely can make money in an open source environment. Just look at all the Anyway, I know that, but it is a lot more straightforward, let's put it that way, to make money in a closed source environment where you just own your code and you own your hardware and you lock people in and they have to buy from you and no one else. And in an open source, if you look at what BL Heli did, BL Heli is the developers.
So glad you're pivoting to this. Yes.
The developers of the ESC firmware, and BL Heli was open source for a long time. Anyone could make a BL Heli ESC. You didn't have to get any licensing or anything, just build hardware that was compatible and run the software. And they ended up, when they went to BL Heli 32, going closed source, that they locked down the firmware. If you have a BL Heli 32, if you manufacture a BL Heli 32 ESC, you have to go get licensing, pay licensing to the developers. Their argument is, we're doing support for you guys. We're developing the firmware for you guys. You guys are making money on it. We need to get compensated for our time and effort. And it's interesting because you still see a lot of BL Heli S ESCs out here. That's the last open source version. And everybody makes a BL Heli 32 ESC, but nobody makes an old school BL Heli ESC anymore. They all switched to BL Heli S as soon as it came out, but they're not doing that with 32.
But this is my favorite thing about this transition, and I'm really glad this came up, because BL Heli was it was innovating very fast. And some people might say that it was always behind something like KISS, and whether that's true or not, wherever they were always changing. You were seeing new updates come out very quickly. They transitioned to closed source, and that has slowed down so fast. And it's slowed down to the point where now BL Heli non-32 versions have features that BL Heli 32 does not have. You cannot get features such as turtle mode or the ESC beeps on BL Heli 32-bit software, which is crazy that now the old open source version has passed the new closed source version and feature set.
I do have to say, I think that has recently changed. I think
thank God. Okay.
I'm being told that BL Heli 32.3 does have D-Shot commands, and I think the issue was that 32.2 had D-Shot commands enabled, but then there was a bug with some ESCs that caused burned motors, so they real quick disabled it till they could fix it. And then, yes, you're right, it took for freaking ever until there was this huge months and months where D-Shot commands were not in 13.2, and I was like, guys, why is this not? How long is it going to take you to fix this? People are telling me, I haven't verified this, that 32.3 fixes it, and it came out semi recently. But you're right.
I checked last week. Last time I checked was last week, and it still wasn't available. I'm hoping for it to be, maybe by the time this airs, you can get a new version of BL Heli 32 that gets you these features.
Did you check 32.3?
I haven't even seen 32.3.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe that's it. I haven't verified it either, but yeah.
So, hey guys, there's a topic that we touched on that I would love to continue with. If we can talk about competition in regards or in how it relates to racing versus freestyle, because that has been a quite, what do I want to say, at times it's become heated on how freestyle should be judged, and racing I think has kind of cracked that nut and figured it out a while ago, but freestyle, I think essentially it has become the judgment for competition is YouTube views and subscribers.
Well, so I'd love to hear from Matty on this, because Matty, you earlier on you were a competitive racer, and then you switched to become a very competitive freestyler, which is unique because I don't think many people try to compete in freestyle the way that you did. You really came in with a competitive mindset.
I wasn't. It wasn't really like, I have a competitive mindset in regards to, I want to try to push things, but I mean, when I went to the racing side of things, and I spent like a good 3 months of just like burning 70 packs a day, and really fine tuning the speed and the agility and just my reflexes and muscle memory. It was meant strictly so I could become a better freestyle pilot. I always liked freestyle, but racing was fun at the same time. But
did you ever win races, like a big race or anything?
No. I went to drone nationals 3 months in to flying, so I wouldn't consider this like my ventures in the racing scene afterwards. But other than that, I would just race with the local crew, right?
Yeah.
I went to XDC, but the thing was, I was practicing so much with my higher tilt. When I went to XDC, it's a really small, agile course, and I basically had to drop my camera down to like 10 degrees, and it threw off everything. Like my yaw is different, my tuning's different, everything. So, but those months that I spent just really trying to get faster was to develop a better ability to be able to flow while I'm freestyling.
So I didn't know that. I didn't know that you approach racing with the goal of affecting your freestyle. That's
I think that I've always thought that racers are always going to help the freestylers, at least.
Okay.
Whether it be product and software innovations. And then I just feel that if you have the absolute confidence to hit gates at a really high speed and to be able to react to that, have a good reaction time, when you're flying in a freestyle environment and you're trying to flow, it just does come more natural. Like I felt the difference of being able to hit gaps in natural world environments and being able to turn and not, when you turn, you sometimes will elevate. I like to keep a flat plane while I'm turning around something, and it helped a lot with that. And I think that even like my buddy right now, Aaron, who's like one of my best buddies who got into flying, I'm telling him, like, listen, you have to do two things. You have to jump in the sim and nail down the tricks that you want to do. And then you have to start thinking about maybe setting up some gates and just doing some drills, because that's going to get your skill level and your technique to the where you want it the fastest, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You have to do both. You have to go hit the gates, you have to come home, and you have to play the sim. when I was developing my own style and vision of flying about 2 years ago in the wintertime, it was strictly me just playing sim because I couldn't fly outside. And then when it was time to actually fly, I would go out, film the new tricks, and it seemed like I was just trying to push the envelope. But it was mainly because I was playing sim, learning the tricks, and then trying to go out and see if they actually work in real life, and they were. So the competitiveness there, it was more just for myself. I was trying to push it, and I was competing with myself. I don't think I've ever really been the biggest one to compete in the YouTube world. As you can see, I don't post, so you need to post to be competitive in the YouTube world. But yeah.
Let me just interject one thing real quick for anyone a little bit less familiar. We jumped into this topic pretty heavily. So racing, as you might imagine, is literally racing drones around a course. Typically there's gates or flags set up, and it's very easy to see who the winner is, who crossed the finish line first, who has the lowest lap time, right? Freestyle, it's more, what do you say, Chad? It's like skateboarding in the air. You do tricks, right? So it's tricks, but it's flow. It's linking these tricks. It's taking the video of this and mixing it to music and color grading. It's more of it's become an art form versus a race for speed. So two very different styles in which the same tool is used, right? These mini quads are flown for this creation of art versus this fight for lowest lap time. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a sport,
right.
and where freestyle is an art. But I would argue that freestylers are just as competitive, just way more passive aggressive.
So, Joshua, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to introduce that. What were you going to say?
Well, I was, Matty, you said you're not competitive because you don't post a lot of videos, but I would say, the first video I saw from you, I don't know if it was the first you posted, was the one where you did the reverse power loop through the trees, and totally blew my mind. Really, legitimately, like I was like, did he fake that? Could he have faked that? Because it was so unexpected. And then you put at the end of the video the little behind the scenes of how much practice you had to do to get, like, you had a guy watching line of sight while you watched FPV, so you could see what the line was going to look like coming back through the trees.
Chad, do you remember watching this video, Chad, in Indy? We just rewatched that when we were with Gabby.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just watched that.
You worked so hard at that. You have to be competitive, whether it's what you see it as competitive with other freestylers or competitive with yourself, pushing yourself. Nobody puts that much work into one stupid trick and then everybody's mind is blown. You're competitive in some way. It's got to be, no matter how many videos you post.
Yeah, like I said before, I feel like I am a competitive person. I try not to. Am I competing with everyone else? Sure, but it's not like, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think what happens is, and I keep seeing this over and over, but freestylers they feel like it somehow diminishes the art by admitting that they're competing, or when they admit that they're competing, it requires them to focus in an area. It's kind of like, so in my filmmaking years, I would say it's like an experimental filmmaker. They want the, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw darts here, but they want the accolades if it does well, but they don't want the downside if it doesn't do well. Then it's like, well, it's experimental, and all these excuses come in, and well, it's subjective, it's art, and versus just saying, because they don't want to be judged by the masses. They want the accolades of the masses.
Unless the masses are saying, hooray,
that they're awesome.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So that's the difference that I've seen in racing versus freestyle.
I've said to myself that one reason why I don't race is that racing is so competitive. In some sense, racing is all about the competition. Obviously, racers have fun too, but when you race, you're racing to win. And I hate that It's like I like that in freestyle. I can just have a good time, and if I think it looks good, I'll post it. And maybe it's not the most mind-blowing video in the world, but people will watch it and enjoy it and say they liked it. Some people will say it sucks and they hated it, and that's okay. I'll just get on with my life. And I think that's kind of what you seem to be getting at, Chad, that there isn't that sort of really ultra-competitive mindset in freestyle, even though some pilots definitely are. Like, I think the equivalent in freestyle of crossing the finish line first is coming up with a trick that people go, oh, what the heck did you just do? That no one's seen before. And doing, like, Matty, the first time he did the reverse power loop, or the first time I saw Johnny Share fly, and like, I'm like, what is he doing with the quad? I have no idea. You know, everybody. But the problem is that every time you hold a race, somebody's going to come in first in every heat and first overall, and they're the winner. Freestyle, you can only do that once every 4 months, once every 6 months, maybe, and everybody else is just kind of riding your coattails.
Right.
So the subjectiveness is interesting. So I like the response that my flights get, because there seems to be this polarizing thing. A lot of people are a big fan. A lot of people hate it.
I think you're polarizing.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's my personality is polarizing, and then it transitions or translates into what people say they think or feel about my flights. But I think it's interesting that on the same video, I can get one person saying, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. The other saying, you're the worst pilot ever. You don't do any tricks.
Well, here's the interesting thing, though. So, Joshua, you're right. Like, in a race, it's definitive. You cross the race line at a certain time, whatever. The rules are there. They're laid out ahead of time, and you know definitively, did I win? Am I first? Okay, in freestyle, I think that does happen, and it's view count or subscribers. And what happens is how you get that view count or subscriber, because that's definitive. So Joshua, what you were saying was if you're like you work for that.
I mean, that's one metric.
No, but it's a definitive metric. You can't argue. You can say 10,000 is more than.
I will argue with you whether that's the right metric. Because a video can get lots of
views. Hold on.
You're arguing ideals versus reality.
Yeah, I didn't say right or wrong. I'm saying
it is a metric.
I bet more people would claim that the view count is the metric for freestyle than anything else.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue that there are some freestylers that are seen maybe as better than they may be seen if their subscriber count weren't as high.
So then therein lies the problem, because go ahead, Josh.
The problem is that you get personality gets into it, right? And so in the same way, Drew, that you're saying that some people hate your freestyle videos because maybe they dislike you personally, and I'll say right off the bat that my freestyle videos get way more accolades than they deserve because people love me because I help them with their problems. I mean, I don't mean to put. I'm not.
Wait,
trying to
do
put
we
myself
definitively know they love you, Josh?
I love you,
Josh. They
Josh.
tell me pretty regularly, so I don't mean to speak out.
People say they love me. It's not, not saying they should, but they just do.
I'll go a little bit blue here and say I'll pick on Steele a little bit and say this: Steele's a great freestyle pilot, but if Steele became a mediocre freestyle pilot one day, his videos would continue to get views because people just love Steele. They like watching him and they like watching him fly. So that, I think, is the problem with using view count. At the same time, there's really, really excellent freestyle pilots that kind of have no following and nobody's heard of, and they get 200 views or 300 subs, but they're better than some pilots who I will not name who are getting way more views.
So what are the other metrics then?
Here's where I'm glad you asked. Here's what I always ask when people talk about freestyle, because that's the other thing. Views and subs don't help you if you wanted to have a freestyle competition, right? Because you can't just post videos online and see who gets the most. And I always ask, we've got these other disciplines similar to what we're doing with freestyle. You could pick on, Olympic ice skating. You could pick on skateboarding is very, very similar to freestyle flying. You could pick on any of these other disciplines with creative elements that are still somehow scored and judged, and say, why aren't we doing the same? I mean, I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but why aren't we? It doesn't seem like we're even trying.
So I was on the 2016 board of freestyle judging for the Drone Nationals, and we were trying to come up with a rule set for New York. I approached it with two different sports. It was a type of figure skating judging, and it was a type of snowboarding / aggressive, like, you know, snowboarding, skateboarding, BMXing, and I was trying to mold them together. And I think that I had a pretty good, because I researched how they judged those sports, and then I kind of tried to relate it to flying, and I think I had a pretty good layout of how we should judge it. And I had to leave the committee because it was just the other pilots were there, and I was just hearing their concept of how, you know, someone should judge on how they felt when, like, you shouldn't judge it with what tricks you did, how close to the ground you did them, how precisely you landed on access, how close you got to objects, how fast you were going, how far away you were doing the trick. And they were saying we should just judge it on your feeling, but then it's like you can't judge that because then it's totally subjective. It's like looking at art, and you can't put a score on it.
So
you can't say,
well, could you?
I want to challenge that. I want to say, why can't that be a metric? Why can't that be something people compete in?
So the way that I was introducing it was there were areas in the judging that took that into accountability, but they didn't just look at that one thing. So it was basically the flow category, right? That's basically how the flight makes you feel is usually how flowy it is, in my opinion. And then there was the technical side of it. Was the guy rolling only to the right? Was he rolling to the left and showing that he could roll to the left and roll to the right perfectly on axis, flip on axis, front flip on axis, and then when I was coming up with all these tricks, I refused to try to do like the snap rolls type of stuff. And then I changed my train of thought and I said, no, wait. I gotta prove that I can do all the tricks. I can fly fast. I can do the snap roll stuff. I can do the flowy stuff. I can do the backward stuff. I can fly smoothly, and for me as a freestyle pilot, that's how I judge another freestyle pilot. I see what they have in their bag of tricks. Are they just one dimensional? Are they just a one trick pony? And so, I mean, if anyone ever wanted to try to get a rule set down, I would love to be like on the highest committee of that board, but like they would have to be totally open-minded to the way that my views on how that freestyle competition should be judged.
But could you be open-minded to theirs?
Yeah, absolutely. But they can't be closed-minded in the point where, you know, I thought my way was a pretty solid way of judging a freestyle competition, because it's a proven way of judging it in every other sport. We're not doing anything different than someone that's skateboarding or snowboarding or BMXing or figure skating. It's all art. It's all, you know what I mean? You should hold a video contest.
Ooh,
a video contest?
So I mean, well, that's like just like Schizo did, which kind of started my whole career.
Yeah, why don't you do it, Matty?
You should do it.
And you can judge the videos based on you publish your criteria, and then judge the videos. You could judge it while you're watching it. You could record it, live stream it, for heck, you know, and then talk about how you're judging it, and then maybe that'll give some promotion to this idea of these standards.
What do you guys like? My fucking social media managers, or what's going on?
I just think I like the idea that we would see more of a technical standard for judging freestyle. Doesn't mean it has to be the only way it's ever done, but I do think you're really onto something with this encouraging presentation of your versatility. You know, there's a lot of pilots who only roll left. They're great pilots, but somehow they only roll left.
I'll do it too, Matty. I'll do it.
As much as people may think that I'm not the most technical person, I'm very technical when it comes to the trick, because I know personally how many hours it took me to be able to roll both ways on access with a 60-degree rig. Like, you guys, anyone who's not flying 60 degrees, try to do a snap roll at 60 degrees if you're coming from 25. It's literally you're doing this. Yeah. So it's
coordinated is really hard.
You should.
You're basically doing a yaw movement and a roll movement and a pitching movement at all times. You're doing 3 different controls on the sticks, and then if you're playing with throttle at the same time, you're doing all 4 inputs. It's not just one input where you just quickly go over and you give a little bit of a yaw input. It's all 4 inputs really.
Yeah.
Well, let me throw out another model though for judging, which I really like this idea of looking to other disciplines for judging, and one is a technical approach like BMX, figure skating, etc. But the other model is, Chad, you made me think of this when you're talking about film competitions. I went to New York City Drone Film Festival. Randy Scott Slavin's the organizer. He's a great guy. If you hadn't heard about it, he does. I think it's in its 4th year. It's fantastic. It focuses exclusively on films that are made more than 50% of the footage was captured by drone, and it's got camera drones, but it's also got mini quads and stuff. Check it out, NYCDFF, the little free plug there, if it makes it into the final edit.
It's really a great festival that exceeded my expectations. I had not been there personally, but the entries, I was a judge this year for the LA Drone Film Festival, and my mind was blown at the quality of film, so I wanted to gladly give him a plug.
And you can go to nycdff.com, and you can see the winners from previous years. Some of them are really like.
We're not sponsored by them, but if they want to give us money, we'll take it. But we're not currently.
So here's why I brought that up. As far as I know, that's a juried festival, right? Is that right, Chad? You were involved with it. Mm-hmm. And what that means is, and this is something that's done for film festivals, for any kind of art competition. Basically, you pick a jury, and they go look at the entries, and they go, "That one wins."
Well, to be fair, they have like a lot of criteria. Like there's like 10 points of criteria for each film, but it's kind of tough because like the criteria is like the directing, the writing, and I'm like it's like one drone shot and it's a spiral upwards, and it's like I'm supposed to give like writing and but you just do the best you can, and so it's absolutely subjective, and it's hard to make an exact science out of art.
Is there an argument to be made that the right way to judge freestyle competitions is the juried model as opposed to the sort of BMX technical model?
Well, I think it should. Well, wait. What do you mean by jury? Are you calling jury like more than one judge, or what do you mean?
Yeah, like instead of saying these are going to be our scoring criteria and we're going to base it on points, and in the end the guy with the most points wins, you say we're going to pick this jury, these 10 pilots or 5 pilots. We're going to give them some guidelines, and then we're just going to let them pick the winner.
I got you. Where it's looser as a jury. I think there's
they come to consensus, right? Because I think in most like skateboard or BMX competitions, there's a panel, and they each say 9, 8, 7, 10, whatever, and it averages, right? But now that's an interesting thing.
Technically, those guys have criteria. Like, I don't know exactly how it works, but you start with 10 points, you get a half a point off for every mistake, or you have, they're technically basing that on some numerical rule set, as opposed to like a film or photo competition where the judges take the criteria and they just kind of sit down and they go, I give this one a 6.
Right. I don't know if what you're saying, I don't know if you meant to say this, but something maybe I misinterpreted. This could be cool. What if for one of these competitions it was like a legal jury where they have to all agree, and at the end of the day they have to pick a winner together? That would be an interesting. It would probably never work.
So
Matty feels strongly.
He's eating, so I'll talk while he's eating. So here's kind of the point I was getting to, though, with freestyle is we're kind of coming at it as what is the proper way to judge it, where kind of the question I want to ask is how are people competing, which means they've already got a determination in their head of how it's being judged because they're doing it. Okay. People are putting out content. So rather than saying what's the right way,
it's content. The current methodology for competition is whatever the main internet video platform is, which right now is YouTube. So right now, practically speaking, YouTube subscribers and views is how we compete in freestyle.
Okay.
I think it should be the size of the fine you've gotten from a national body. His fine wins.
Well, okay, so now it's interesting because now we're kind of crossing over into other content. So freestyle is just the pure flight videos, but then there's like vlogs / flight. And then there's like Rotor Riot is like a show. So there's different forms.
Oh yeah, no. So it's again saying this is how freestyle is competed, but it's not necessarily the right because it is based on views and subscribers. But I mean the truth, like a criticism I've received is that Drib isn't a good pilot. He just has views because he does vlogs, and I can't even disagree with that. I mean,
I would disagree.
I think you're a good pilot.
I think you're a great pilot.
Thanks, guys.
And honestly, I'm not saying that because we're boys. I would tell you.
Matty would.
I think
hey, you're flying dog shit.
I think you're on to something.
I honestly was very impressed. I was really impressed with your flying, and I like the style, and I think it meshes. It almost meshes like a little bit of my style with Schizo's flying.
Yeah.
And it's yeah.
And Joshua, I know you have a point you want to bring up, but I want to share this because it's when I first got up there and met you, Matty, and we hung out a little bit, and then Drew got there later. And the first time Drew went up and you watched it, I saw it on your face. And I was like, so I was kind of like vindicated at that point because I'm not a great pilot. And I chose Drew based on like all of this criteria. Like, I think he's a great pilot. I think he's a great personality, and he meshes well with our value system and all of that. And so, but it's really hard. Like, if you're not a chef, how do you judge the cooking in a sense, So when I saw Matty's face watching Drew's first flight in person, I was like, yep, I got it. And Matty didn't even have to say a word.
Thanks, Matty.
I was maybe thinking about Bitcoin at the time.
I think you were.
No. With all honesty, I was very impressed with Tommy and Drew's flying in person. You can always tell the real talent. For me, I was coming off of like a 6-month fucking layoff, so I was crashing all the time, and I couldn't find my flow. I love
watching you fly, and that's the interesting thing about all this judging and competition that we're talking about takes place in the internet space, YouTube, right? But when you see flights in person, it is different. You're way when I was already a huge fan of flying, but seeing it in person really blew my mind. It was a lot of fun. But Willard is the person that I was a fan of his flying, but when I flew with him in person, he's probably my favorite pilot.
Yeah,
Can I tell a story about that?
One sec. He's quite honestly, I think, one of the best pilots in the world, and he's my favorite pilot as well.
Yeah.
I think because from my OCD, I see a lot of that precision in him and technicality mixed in with the freestyle. I would just love to see him maybe start trying to do a couple tricks where he's inverting into gaps and maybe playing around with some knife edge stuff. And then he would be like my dream pilot.
Well, you just flew with him, Joshua. What were you going to say?
I did. I flew with him last weekend, and I produced a video with him. But he came through Knoxville several months ago and just was like, hey, I'm coming through. Does anybody want to fly with me? And everybody who watched him fly, like the ability to just sit down in a new environment and envision the environment creatively and like me, you'd set me down in a place, and after 20 or 30 packs, I'll start to find a flow and find some lines and produce a video. But I think one of the things that makes pilots like Willard really stand out is that you can literally just take him somewhere he's never been before. Unlike his third pack, he'll be hitting lines and pulling moves, and you'll be like, where did you find that? Mm-hmm. I think that's maybe an interesting idea for a competition is, give pilots, don't let them practice the environment. Give them 3 packs and on their 4th pack, that's it.
Oh, that is a great idea.
Because that'll really separate.
In case you haven't heard of this guy we're talking about, he goes by Wild Willie. Look him up on YouTube. He's been on several Rotor Riot episodes. He's been in my vlog. He's now been in Joshua Bardwell episodes. Really great guy. Oh, and of course, he's a drone racing league pilot. He competes on ESPN in one of the most competitive races. So he is an incredibly talented freestyler and a very competitive racer, which is kind of rare. Very special too, I think.
Yeah, and
remember what I was saying about racers?
Yeah.
race. And that's the thing. He can go into a new environment and just hit lines no matter what, because he's one of the best racers in the world, in my opinion, as well. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he's definitely top 5. We've never had this competition yet where every single crazy racer has met up with their own rigs and raced a course.
Ooh,
I don't think
that sounds like
yet, right?
That sounds like something.
Yeah, I would love to see
the Rotor Riot Invitational.
I would love to see Luke Bannister, Nick Willard, Sean Taylor, and then who's the other guy? The young
Captain Vanover.
What about Captain Vanover? Just beat Sean Taylor. So Captain Vanover's the new multi-GP champion of, you know, he won the Reno race, and Sean and Alex, Captain Vanover.
Oh, you're thinking
he's
thinking of Thomas Bitmata.
Oh, that too.
Oh,
no. I'm talking about the guy from. I think he's from. I would like to say Korea.
Are you talking about Min?
Yes.
Min Chen.
I literally just saw a video of that kid flying in a parkade, and I was trying, like, with my ego, I was trying to be like, could I do that? And there's no way I could do it. Like, he was doing these, like, pillar weaves.
Wait, I want to hear what your ego said back to you.
My ego said, Matty, wake up from the dream and go back to Bitcoin. But what's it called? He was flying in such a risky, low-level concrete, like, dungeon, and he was just going as fast as humanly possible. As fast as the quad can go, he was doing it in every change of direction. I would love to see him race. The one thing, if you just beat Sean once, that's fine, okay? But I so many times...
Also, that's why I was bringing up Alex Vanover. So he won the race in Reno, and then now he and Sean just had recently, like over this past weekend, I think, a shootout race. And Alex won 6-0 against Sean. So 6 heats.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same... I don't know.
Matty has to see it.
No, it's not even that. I just know that Sean's going through some hard times right now. You know, he can't practice as much. I don't know if this is...
Well, Sean, not to take away from Sean, he is amazing. Like,
no, I'm not saying I'm not taking down Sean. I'm just building up Alex. They're both amazing pilots and great people that I've got to meet both of them.
And Sean is obviously coming off an injury. He hasn't been able to fly as much lately, and his headspace might not be in the same headspace. Like, I talked to him, and he's bummed out. He has one of the worst knee injuries you can ever have. Yeah. And the poor guy, you know, would risk his life to save people as a firefighter, and not even, you know, skip a beat and run into a burning building to rescue you. And he goes running to grab his quad, and he sustains one of the worst knee injuries he can have. So I think
drone racing is athletic and dangerous for all the names.
I think there's maybe a little bit of head play going on there with him. You know, it's well, I've been injured. I've been injured like that too, and you're not fully recovered mentally to be able to go and compete. And he's a very emotional competitor. Like, at the end of every race I've almost ever seen him race, he's almost in tears, and it's because he puts himself through this, like, emotional roller coaster to be able to be the best. And it's crazy watching Sean race, because he'll push it. Like, when he starts one heat, he'll push it, and he'll win. And then the next heat, everyone's getting better, and he'll push it, and he'll win. And then the next race, and you just see him start getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's crazy. I saw it at XDC in Vegas. That was a year and a half ago, but he's gotten faster. But I saw what he does and the skill set of his piloting.
Yeah.
So let's probably cover one more angle at this before we wrap up. Joshua, who's your competition, and how do you deal with competition?
Do you think like Stu UAV Futures? Think about my second YouTube channel. There's like no videos on it yet, but
it's tough. There's so many other guys out there. They're doing technical stuff that, like I said, I look at it and I wish I'd done it. The last time I really, really hated somebody was when NJ Tech did his teardown review of the Top Sky F7X goggle, and it was so good. It was so thorough. It was like 20 minutes long. He hit all the points, the high points, the low points. He opened them up. And I was never bored through the whole thing. And I was like, this is such a good video. I can't remember the last time I did anything this good.
Can you say that YouTube? Let's get that plug out there. What's it?
NJ Tech is his name.
J Tech. Okay.
NJ Tech.
Oh, NJ Tech. Okay.
NJ like New Jersey, but I don't think he's from New Jersey. He's English, I think.
I think it's great, Joshua, that you're so open with your jealousy.
Oh God, I was so mad at him. I just was literally watching the video with headphones on and cussing out loud saying, F you son of a. Anyway, and then I told him as much, and I say it repeatedly because I feel like anybody who does such a great job deserves credit. Those are the people I feel like I'm competing with and who drive me. But unfortunately, there's just so much stuff out there to cover. I can't cover it all, and I just have to focus on what I'm doing and do my thing. And that's a way that freestyle is different than racing, because ultimately you do your thing, Drew. You do your style. You can't do anything but your style. You can try and push yourself, and people are going to like it or they're going to dislike it, but you just got to do it. Mm-hmm. I can't compare myself to him or UAV Futures or anybody. If I try and do that, then I lose my authenticity, and that's something that you just have to stick with it and hope it's good enough.
And if anyone's taking anything away from that conversation that little speech that Josh just gave, personal growth wise, you should never focus on what other people are doing, because and I think there was a comment that said someone said something about how can I do a podcast if I don't watch other people fly?
Oh yeah, wait, no, I want to pull up that comment.
Yeah, now I don't. Okay, I watch Willie fly, but it's not like I go out of my way to watch his videos. It'll come up. Someone will send me a video of another pilot. I'll give it a watch, but it's not like I'm engulfed in everyone else's flying, because I don't want to take away from my own creative insight and intellect.
So wait, the comment specifically was from Twisted Shots TV. Yeah, I'm calling you out. When Matty said he doesn't watch as anyone else flying, I turned off to him as a person, as a pilot. If you don't watch the community fly, then why would I care to listen to you on a podcast? And kind of goes on a bit. So,
yeah, I mean, that's his opinion, and I respect him for it. But as a person, he shouldn't look at me any differently, because I'm doing it for my own reasons. And I specifically said I don't watch people because I'm a dick.
No, I would agree with that. I would agree with what you're saying. I don't watch people
because exactly what Josh says. I don't pay attention to what everyone else is doing. I pay attention to what I'm doing.
Right. And it comes down to who you are. So for me personally, watching other people's videos gives me strength, and I like engaging in that. But I think if it could impede on your creative expression, then it hurts your output. It hurts your production capabilities. So you have to respect that.
Yeah, I think there's a balance. This is actually a topic I care a lot about, because you have to not get yourself so far up your own butt that you can't see the world around you, right? And that's really easy to do on YouTube, especially where if you could just make videos and people tell you you're great and you lose perspective. At the same time, you can't look at what other people are doing and try to emulate them. Like an example, you brought up UAV Futures, and he has a different approach. He has a different approach than me towards the products he chooses to review and the way he chooses to monetize them. And that doesn't work. There was a time when I was like, dude is getting so many subscribers. He passed me. I had more subs than him for a long time. I think he started his channel later than me, and I just watched as our lines crossed and his kept going. I was like, what is he doing that I'm not doing, that I should think about doing? And at some point I was like, no, I can't. That's just not me. It's whatever he's doing.
You gotta fight your own battle.
Yeah, and I think what Stu has done.
But you have to be aware of it. You have to be aware of what other people are doing.
Josh, I can 100% relate, because I look at some of the more successful people in terms of subscriber count in this industry, like some of their vlogs maybe that have maybe more subscribers, and I'm like, maybe if I and some of them specifically, like if I had to do that, I wouldn't even like myself.
But you can be inspired. You can be inspired as long as you stay authentic. If I watch somebody like Matty or Johnny or Willie fly, and I go, I want to be able to do what he's doing. You can go out and you can integrate it, and as long as you're staying authentic.
It's the difference between being a copycat and a rip-off artist versus being
but
someone that's truly inspired.
So that's equal to saying position number 1 is copying position number 2 in a race.
Mm-hmm.
Like
they're both running track.
Yeah, you're both. Right. So when I talk about competition, it's funny how you guys have taken it to, well, don't look at other people. So I guess that would be the equivalent of don't look at the guy next to you, which maybe.
No one's saying. Well,
racing is not about
saying you shouldn't look at other people.
No, racing's not about.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Racing's not about like an authentic expression of who you are in the way that freestyle or vlogging or video production is. Racing is just a technical exercise of who can cross the line the fastest. And you could look at the other guys and see what they're doing and imitate them. That's just racing. But I think if we're talking about a creative expression, authenticity is critical. You can find some, like, let's take another guy. Look at Botgrinder. Botgrinder's vlogs are technically not impressive, and yet they're awesome because
his personality. He's amazing,
authentically himself, and people love it, and no one cares about his technical. So there's that aspect of it. If you have something to offer in that sense, then you shouldn't dilute it by trying to take what other people have to offer.
But I think that's where it got confusing when I was asking about competition. Who do you see as your competition? That's one question. I think the other question is, how do you compare or to the competition as far as not style, but are you further along? Like you said yourself, Josh, like UAV Futures, like you're watching his subs. And so you were paying attention to that. So you were competing in that.
But so what we were getting on, and I think maybe we weren't explaining it well to each other, was that what's interesting is that as people that maybe like look at our own outputs as very creative expressions, if we look at some of our competition, say if I, to get to that point, copied that person, essentially as a vlogger, let's say I emulated someone else's personality, and let's just say that would even be successful. Would I choose to do that? Personally, I would not, especially for some of the people that are ahead of me in terms of subscribers. I wouldn't want to bring myself to do some of those things, right? Because it doesn't jive with me, right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? I'm saying so. It's kind of weird where it's not copying. In racing, you copy some of the technical skill sets to improve your lap time, but when it comes to creative output, sometimes you have to make a decision.
You can copy, but you can't. Like, for example, I've stolen Chad Capper's lighting technique in this video, but you can. It has to be from a perspective of building yourself and hopefully the other person up too. If there ever got to be a point where I was looking at Stu's subscriber count and going, that son of a, and really feeling negative about it, then I would need to take a step back and re-examine it, because ultimately, we're all really just struggling to do our thing. There's
ultimately, you're spending the time that you could be positive on yourself on a negative thought, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I think the most important thing to keep in mind in this area is that the internet is a huge place. There is enough room for all of our different channel styles, all of our different things. So we should compete in a healthy way. But the idea that some people have that you need to step on or tear down another person's for your own growth, that is an unhealthy toxicity that needs to be squashed.
Exactly. Listen, Drew, you're wrong, okay? The internet's not big enough for that hairdo, okay?
That is actually
I think that's the next point of this podcast is how long is this going to happen for? Or is this a permanent thing? Are you trying it out?
The hair?
Your evolution as a vlogger. So many vloggers seem to have blue hair or purple hair. I just figured.
For those of you looking at home, or listening and not seeing, I have purple hair now.
You have lavender hair.
There was a comment that says, "Does the hair match the bush or something?"
I don't think that was the comment, but we get what you're getting at.
Match the drapes.
Yes, that's what it was. Hey, Josh, let me ask you something. Do you have a Patreon?
I do. I have a Patreon. I'm not sure how you actually say it. I do have a Patreon. I have a website also, fpvknowitall.com. And that website has a page about how you can support me. I do this. This is my full-time job now. I quit my day job just recently to spend all day from morning to night helping people on the internet.
And let me tell you something.
That was a recent leap for you, right? So congratulations.
Yeah, a few weeks ago.
I'm a big supporter of people like Josh in the industry, because it's people like him are making it easier for everyone else, all you guys, to fly.
Yeah, back in the day, what the services that Josh offers used to be called PBS. It was a TV show or TV station, and people would show you how to paint, how to make music, all this stuff, and you would give once a year to the public broadcasting system to keep great content alive. Now it's independent, and you can help support Josh by giving directly to him. And
now, Josh.
Hang on 1 second. I got to finish plugging my site though. So it's FPV. It's FPV. I didn't finish. It's fpvknowitall.com, and if you go to the upper right, the About link, there's a Support Me page, which has links to my Patreon, but also other ways you can support me, including using affiliate links, which doesn't cost you anything, and various other things you can do. So definitely check it out. Okay, plug over.
Josh, do you take Bitcoin?
I do, in fact. Now, and people love Bitcoin so much. Somebody once said, if you give me a Bitcoin address, I'll send you a donation. They sent me $100.
No way!
For just because they love Bitcoin. So I actually have Bitcoin addresses up on the Support Me page.
Listen, look at this.
Matty is trying so hard.
NEBL. It is up 89%. I got in when it was at 10%.
No,
I'm killing it right now. I'm literally not. I have no sleep. I had no sleep last night. The reason why I was late is because I was trying to sleep in. And
sell.
Anyways,
sell.
Yes. And if anyone, I would absolutely give Joshua money to his Patreon, but it's literally wrapped. Everything's wrapped up in Tron and Nebula. Okay.
Yeah. So I have addresses. I have Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Litecoin addresses up on my support me, how you can support me page at fpvknowitall.com under the About banner. There's a whole page of that.
I'm afraid that in like 3 months, Matty's going to be on here. He's going to be like, I lost it all.
Continue to sign it. So this is becoming a reoccurring segment. Toward the end of every podcast, Matty's going to go on his little
I had about
Bitcoin
3 or 4 people and one person locally really get into it with me, and I started sharing with them what my profit was and my margins and what I'm making, and I've already made my initial investment back, so I'm not going to lose anything at all now. Wait, I'm using everything.
Have you made it back and you pulled it out?
No.
Okay.
Pull it out.
That's my point. Yeah.
I'm not pulling it out just yet.
The problem is Willard's doing.
I need that capital to keep on making these huge swings like I made last night.
So you can still.
I literally let me see what I made.
Hold on. I want to wrap this up without going too far down the.
No, this is a whole segment now. We might as well complete it.
All right.
$699 US I've made last night. So why would I take out that money when it's continuing to make me money? What I'm gonna do, it's not that much. I didn't put that much in, but I'm having these huge fucking runs and these huge gains that
it's a bubble. It's a bubble. That's how bubbles work. Everybody on the upside of the bubble makes a ton of money, and then everybody who didn't pull out because they didn't want to stop gaining, then they lose everything when the bubble bursts. It's just a question of when the bubble bursts. No offense, Matty.
What I'm doing is I'm gambling on when the bubble is going to burst.
That's what you do. At least you're honest about it.
Yes.
That's what you're doing.
Is it really a bubble, though? Is it really a bubble?
It is a bubble. No, you can't look at how many cryptocurrencies are there now versus 2 months versus 4 months ago. There are tons of new tiny cryptocurrencies no one's ever heard of that are being created solely to let cryptocurrency speculators shuffle money around and try to. It's totally a bubble.
I was just contacted about a quad-specific cryptocurrency.
Quad coin.
Hey, listen. There's a bunch of pump and dumps, but you have to put your money where the technology is going to go past the cryptocurrency age.
We could start Quadcoin and accept it at the Rotor Riot store.
It's already out there.
All right, let's accept it at the store.
Quadcoin or...
I would absolutely start accepting Bitcoin as a currency.
Bitcoin,
absolutely.
No, on quad coin.
Anyways, we're getting off subject.
We're way off. So I want to circle it back,
off.
and to wrap this up, I want to touch on our quad camp, and it's awesome that we have Joshua on here today because we recently announced our second quad camp. It's taking place in Atlanta. No, it's not technically Atlanta. It's just outside of Atlanta, Logansville. It will be the same three of us that were at the first one, which is myself, Kevin Stinger Swarm, and Tommy Umagai will be there, but we will also be joined by Joshua Bardwell himself, a.k.a. the FPV know-it-all, and he's going to come rain down all sorts of knowledge upon thine participants. So get ready, get psyched. Quad Camp 2.0 is going to blow your fucking minds.
Whoa. Drew,
Jesus Christ.
Hey,
what is that hair doing to you, Drew?
environment.
What is that hair doing to you? God damn it.
So any other thoughts we need to hit on before we close this out?
You know what? I think we covered that subject great. For me personally, I'm going to keep on trying to make the wall better.
I see you're inching your way there. You got a couple controllers.
Yeah, that was done very, very soon. I still haven't gotten a mic, so my audio probably still sounds like dog shit. And my lighting is, there's shadows here, there's shadows everywhere.
That's all right. It's going to be awesome.
You are technically the front man of this podcast, Matty. You should look better than all of us.
Yes.
I can't look better than you with that hair and Chad with that lighting, okay? And second of all, this is like the 18th project that I'm trying to work on right now. So, you know what? There's actually a crazy product announcement that I'm pretty psyched about, and I can't tell any of you yet, but I'm building hype. It's gonna be crazy.
Can you give the category?
I haven't even told you guys yet.
Can you give the category?
Is it a frame?
Is it a battery?
It's a frame. I think it's a camera. An FPV camera that's specifically designed to work at 60 degrees up tilt.
No.
It's literally a quad that mines Bitcoin. And when I fly it, I mine
guys. Thank you so much for joining episode 2.
Number one reason to go to F7 processor.
We are
Unrestricted in your guys' ass.
We are now on iTunes and Google Play, and we are coming soon to Spotify. You can check it out at the Libsyn address, of course, and also YouTube, where you can watch all of our pretty faces. Check out my new iridescent lavender hair. Leave a comment, subscribe to the main Rotor Riot channel for amazing episodes like the flying a drone in a moving truck, which came out last night, and it's one of my favorites, even though everyone's making fun of me for being incorrect, which happens. It happens. Tell me you've never been wrong.
Heavier quads are faster.
Yeah, whatever. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.